Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, double honors, the and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth in sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Brakatham. Salakia about last lesson, it got interrupted because, of course, I picked the wrong day to do it, right? They were doing cleaning and all kinds of other stuff, and so that would have drowned out my lesson. But nonetheless, though, we could see on the scene of things that Trump is, going back to what he does best, his tariff wars, right? And Canada has responded. And like everything else, so, he's just doing what he does best. He's tanking the U.S. economy, which is why he was put in place as to where he was. He's going to cause the fall of Babylon the Great. And of course, it's to break them economically, militarily, just break them down altogether. Because the only way that they can merge a new world order, to forge a new world order, is if the American empire dies. Yeah, it's a plan of them. This is a plan of the elites. But nonetheless, though, we know that this is that place, Babylon the Great, because, that's where, all the, they've been hammered the whole earth. I mean, there's so many things proving that, which we'll get those scriptures out. But like everything else, though, this is what's happening, with his, making Cuba and, of course, Canada other states. Yes, he has a plan. In Colombia, you could say it belongs to it, and so does Venezuela. So he has plans without military attack, but just taking them over economically, if you listen to this.
Donald Trump was having a meltdown at 1:06 a.m. over his catastrophic trade war with Canada, as Canada has struck back hard. Prime Minister Carney made it clear, we are indeed in a war against the United States because they attacked us. We are in a trade war, and Canada will win this trade war, Prime Minister Carney said yesterday. So finally, Donald Trump broke his silence at 1:06 a.m. in the morning after hanging out with Natalie all day. By the way, the press pool at the White House caught them walking in together around 4:45 p.m. when they kicked out all the press from the White House. But I digress. At 1:06 a.m., Donald Trump posted the following. Canada wants the benefits of being a state.
No, they don't.
They have also charged our great farmers for many years massive amounts of tariffs. No more exclamation.
You're the only one that's raised tariffs.
Canada does not want the benefits of being a state. Canada wants to be Canada, a sovereign, proud nation, and they want to be treated with the respect and dignity they deserve as an ally, as a country that has always had the back of the United States that you have utterly betrayed. There is a trade agreement with Canada that you did during your first term called CUSMA, the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, and all anybody is saying is stick to the terms of the deal. Canada negotiated in good faith. The Trump regime negotiated in bad faith. Donald Trump has tried every tactic to get Canada to submit to become the 51st state, whether it was attacking Canada because they ran a ad using Ronald Reagan's speech when Ronald Reagan's supposed to be someone the Republicans claim they look up to, whether it's because of the bridge that was being built between Michigan and Canada, whether it was whatever the justification was, the Trump regime would, the wildfires, whatever it was, the Trump regime would try to find ways to say, this is why we're attacking Canada, and this is why they need to become the 51st state. Well, no, Prime Minister Carney made it very clear that Canada will stand up for its sovereignty. It will never submit. It will not do a bad deal. It rather do no deal at all, and the Canadian people and the premiers of Canada are rallying around Prime Minister Carney right now.
So, like everything else, though, what is it that we always said before? That everything Trump does makes you not want to fucking deal with him, right? Nobody wants to fucking deal with him because he's an asshole, you see? And like everything else, though, one thing he's done for sure, MAGA really has made everybody hate America because of him. They hate him. It's not that they hate America. They just hate Donald Trump. They don't want to deal with Donald Trump. They don't want to deal with this administration at all. So they've, taken measures elsewhere, right? And they're trading outside the dollar. They've de-dollarized, And the whole point about Trump being where he is to get rid of the dollar anyways, to move in towards a digital dollar. It's all about a new world order. A one world government, which is why he's submerging the Israeli military with the U.S. military, IDF, taking over. Because like everything else, though, everybody knows that he's a pedophile, and King Bibi has the goods on him, right? And King Bibi is awaiting trial, too. So these two people are just trying to, save themselves, from trials because they would be found guilty, on both sides of it. So, like everything else, so the only thing they could do is continue to escalate wars, trade wars, and, pretty much bring about the one world government, because it's really about a takeover anyways, to merge it all as one. because it's like, oh, you don't want the Epstein files coming out? Well, you got to merge everything together. This is it, man. You got to do everything we say. So you go to war with who we say, and guess what? There's a plot to draw Turkey into the war. Now that's pretty much though is what we were talking about, that eventually Turkey would be involved in the war. That this is a much bigger war than just a war against Iran. That's really about a whole war in the West Asia, which spills over to World War III, the third world war that cometh quickly. And so, like everything else, so, we're here. The third world war approaches quickly. And, we see that, indeed, that as this third world war approaches quickly, the more and more they bring in the police state to one world government.
None of you see this. Get out of here, niggers. Worthless fuck. They're not allowed ever to live.
So, like everything else, as this third world war approaches, they continue to bring about the end, an economic collapse, and they want to usher in, ultimately, a one world system where they pretty much control everything. Everything's under a police state and 20-minute cities, 10, or what do they call them, 10-minute cities. But pretty much, though, where they control everything, and then they ultimately have everybody chipped, and that everything's on them chips. At the end of the day, they want to have everyone chipped, and as they usher in that new world order, the third world war comes to all those that decided to go and get it, to worship the beast in its image. But like everything else, so, who's going to be the main pusher of it? Of course, man, the whore that rides the beast, Mystery Babylon the Great, also known as the Scarlet Colored Beast. So like everything else, so, they have to bring it in, incrementally. And like everything else, though, things are going to accelerate. Revelation chapter 17, verse 3, it reads, "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns." And who's that talking about? The new superpower, also known as that they call America, which means bitter, by the way. But pretty much America, Babylon the Great. "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth." And that's this place here. See, it couldn't be the Roman Catholic Church, because, they might have some influence as far as the religions of the world, but not enough to control the whole world, because there's a lot of people that don't even believe in the religion. And so, like everything else, so you hear people bugging out, right, man? That, hey, man, it's always been about Jacob and Esau. And Esau hates Jacob because he got the blessing. Ultimately, he covets Jacob's blessing, which is immortality. See, Esau wants immortality so bad. That's why they're building AI. That's why they're building everything else, because they know they can't have immortality, that they have a time, and then their time is gone. But they want to preserve it. They want to get everything preserved and into AI. You notice that AI is doing everything. But ultimately, they want everybody chipped into that system. Especially if you listen to the main Zionist that speak at the World Economic Forum, Yavari. Yeah, man, you listen to his ambitions, and that pretty much spells out what this new world order is, this one system. "And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua, and I saw her and wondered with great admiration." How they were able to get away with it for so long, right? Because Esau's been getting away with it for so long, So marvel, can also mean in great admiration. It's just talking about, wow, man, it had that much influence and power, and that our people didn't even know who they were. They actually accepted these bywords. Well, you just heard it just a minute ago, right? You heard a bug out, man, because Esau's totally bugged out, by everything that's happening. His economy is destroyed, and he's no longer on the top, man. He's at the very bottom. He's finding out that he's a 99%. That pretty much, though, there's only 1% that live on top, and he ain't it. Nope, there's only Amalek. Only Amalek gets to sit on top, and that's a certain Amalekites too. So you're either in that or you're not. And guess what? Most people are 99%, and they can't handle being part of the 99%ers. And the angel said unto me, Where dost thou marvel? And I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns, which basically, is the ruling power, which is the, might that Babylon the Great has and its allies, right? But like everything else, so you jump down a bit, and it says, it says this in verse 13, They have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, and these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. Talking about, the space war, right? Which is also known as fighting Yahushua and the chariots, which they now admit that there is a such thing as UFOs, but it's not just, well, they'll admit that they're spaceships, but they just won't admit that they're the angels of the Most High, because Esau's got everybody deceived. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful, which is why we do this work diligently. We want to be called with him, escaping the destruction that's coming to Babylon. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore, shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Ultimately, though, they were allies at one time, but they're going to turn their missiles upon this place too. And everybody's choosing a side. And you can now see that Israeli state is trying to draw Turkey into this war. If you hadn't caught Kim Iverson, she just did something on this. But basically, Israeli state's trying to bait Turkey into a war, which is why they fired upon their forces in Syria, trying to stop them from helping Syria, to rise up again, because like everything else, though, there was an older deal, but the Israeli state had reneged on the deal, which is that, okay, we would control the southern part of Syria, and Turkey can have Damascus and the Idlib province, So the southern parts of Syria were meant to be controlled by the Israeli state, and the northern parts were to be controlled by Turkey. But guess what? That's not good enough for the Israelis, even though they made this deal to bring in Hayat al-Sham, also known as ISIS, was really meant to bring about a caliphate, which they promised the Turks. And guess what? They had plans afterward, and we're in the plans afterward, which is, of course, to have full control of the Greater Israel Project. It's always been about the Greater Israel Project. And that's where we're at today, Everybody knows that they're fighting for Greater Israel. Iran and the U.S. really, truly aren't enemies. But the Israelis have war with them, right? Amalek. That's how the U.S. got baited into this war to begin with. And Donald Trump's, you should have already heard what he said. I support Israeli state 1,000%. Basically, I support Greater Israel 1,000%. So you should have already heard that, which basically means he was going to merge everything anyways. Everything he's doing makes perfect sense. If you actually listen to the earlier speeches, it makes perfect sense. His wife is an Amalekite, and guess what? He's an Amalekite too. So, everything he does is for Greater Israel. But he pretends, he charades that that he puts America first, and you can see that he clearly does not. In fact, he's genociding horses. He's genociding everything, and it's totally made it tougher than all hell to fucking live over here, right? The gas price is going up, everything else is going up, but he's talking about how, it's the greatest place on earth to live. No, it's not. It's the worst place on earth to live, because guess what? Most people are in the 99% category over here. They have the worst foods, the worst economy. Your dollar ain't really worth shit anymore. And they have a reason for that, right? Because like everything else, though, this was never our rest to begin with. And the Most High is now turning everything up against the Edomites, we were always cursed, but now the curse is starting to fall upon Esau. We're just used to the curses, So it really hasn't affected us any more than it did before, So we're kind of used to it, that, your dollar ain't worth very much, and that, we're getting the worst of it, but we still make the best music in the world. We still sing into songs, and we still are joyful. Well, that's just it. You can't take that joyful noise from the Israelites, the real Israelites. We're still singing the song. We're still going out here and teaching, though we're tried. And boy, are we tried, And some of us will be sifted, those that really weren't in it, So you always try to get your own determination as to whether the Most High is dealing with you or not. And I can count my blessings. Yeah, I've been through some trials, but yet I was still able to pray to the Most High, pray to Yahushua, to deliver me from those things. And guess what? I'm still able to. You know, and now we're in a famine of the word, you know, where I don't have communication unless somebody actually answers the email down below, the email address, because I can't text that in any chat rooms whatsoever. You know, I can't connect. So guess what? You know, the only connection I have is just watching other videos, but I know that eventually that'll be taken down. You see, they're planning to get rid of free speech altogether. If you notice, though, that Trump has been going after all those that critique him, right? You know, because it's been portraying America in a very bad way, you know, because he's saying that they won the war, but clearly they haven't won the war. And anybody's saying that, hey, man, there's a lot more casualties than what the Pentagon admits to. And that our bases have been wiped out and that our weapons ain't working. And that it's the U.S. that's being chased out of there, which is why he keeps on saying, oh, they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. And then he keeps on saying, we're going to blow them into kingdom come. You know, we're going to, you know, but he does have secret plans, by the way. Not so secret, right? Of a ground invasion, of a larger scale invasion, but he's got to be able to build up the arsenal to do it. And the only thing that's really left are nuclear missiles, and he's talked about that already. The nuclear option. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out last week and said that, look, man, they have been exploring the nuclear option, that he will use nuclear missiles, that we got to stop this war. Well, this war is inevitable. The Third World War cometh quickly, you know, because like everything else, so in order to even subdue Iran, you would have to use nuclear missiles against them. So they've had plans to use nuclear missiles against Pickaxe Mountain in particularly, you know, try to go after their nuclear arsenal, which that's a false flag to just invade Iran anyways, to say that Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon or has means of getting a nuclear weapon when they got allies. They got allies anyways. And like everything else, though, you know, Pakistan has nuclear weapons. So, you know, Pakistan had already stated that any nuclear attack against Iran, Tel Aviv would be nuked. And so making their habitations desolate with them, right? Because Babylon the Great would ultimately be doing it. And guess who's going to nuke Babylon the Great? Russia, but also the allies are too. You see, like everything else, so they know that Donald Trump has betrayed all. You know, he betrayed Ukraine, Zelensky. You know, he promised them Patriot missiles. It's like, nope, I need them now. You know, because so Zelensky told them last year that, look, man, you don't support us and all that, very bad things are going to happen. So there's a NATO alliance, you know, because Ukraine may not be a part of NATO, but they talk to NATO members. Nonetheless, though, and the NATO members support Ukraine. So guess what? They all is like, hey, man, you know, if they don't support us, man, we're going to have to take up arms against them. And that's just it, though, is that nobody ever thought that the Allies would turn on Babylon. But you got to listen to all the language. And you got to read the scriptures, man. You see, you got to be in these things, man, you know. And you got to have the understanding, ultimately, or the Most High just ain't dealing with you, because look at everything that's transpired, right? You know, everything has transpired. And so we know we're getting closer to it, you know. We can see that this place is broken down, you know, and that, you know, the only thing that's left is the MOTB being mandated, and of course everything being locked down, and it ain't too far from that. You know, when they can concoct fake diseases and then lock the whole world down and create a vaccine, you know, to make everybody, you know, and make people submit to that vaccine, how much more to submitting to a chip? A lot of people went and got the vaccine. Well, they're going to enforce everything, right? And there's going to be even more need for, you know, as they would say, universal income. They're going to have more need for that. And the only way to get that, to be able to commerce at all, would be to have that chip. And if you ain't got the chip, you know, you're fucked pretty much. Unless you have the Most High. Unless you are part of the elect. You're the only ones that are going to survive this. Everyone else is going to cave in and get the chip, you know. So you heard it from Great Millstone more than anyone else that, you know, many are selected, but few are chosen, you know. So we want to be part of that hopeful elect. And we say hopeful elect because we don't know until the time comes. But we just make sure that our reassurance is there. So, you know, again, you know, we're seeing the end of Esau's kingdom and the beginning of ours. You know, so this is a great time to be alive, but it's also a great time to fear the Most High, because he is doing a lot of sifting. You know, a lot of people that were in the truth, that you thought was in the truth, man, they fell away, you know, and they just kept waxing worse and worse. You know, how do you think Sakari group came? They were members of Great Millstone before they ended up in the Sakari group. You know, these are people that you know, started believing doctrines of devils and then pretty much gave into that. You know, and you have you know, those that broke off of One West to become Great Millstone, but then others became something else. You know. And, well, they teach that the MOTB is something else. And ultimately, that's how you can tell which ones have the truth. Who teaches that the MOTB is the chip? We're the only ones that do it, you know. Men of Valor is joined unto us, you know, because Men of Valor is the only other one besides the Great Millstone name that teaches that, right? But still goes back to Great Millstone at the end of the day. So we have the 100% truth. And we've been telling you that they're going to usher in a new world order. And we're past the great I told you so, because you see everything happening. It's manifesting. So, you know, like everything else, so, you know, just pray that you be found worthy to escape, because make no mistake, the Most High is bringing out his judgments. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I want to say, Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal, Brakathum, Jehovah elect, Shalom.